So let's imagine you've checked and you can't see anything that indicates visual stress and you can't see anything that indicates phonological dyslexia. Well, what do you do then? Well, pretty much as teachers, you're used to sort of trying to pick what it is. Firstly, I'd recommend you trust your intuition. If you think you know what it is, pursue it and check it out. Also, chat with other teachers because especially if they're a lot older than you, they've been teaching a lot longer, they're the first ones to ask. It's possible that the child has had a hearing problem, and it's possible the child's had that hearing problem for a long time and it's just never been picked up. It's common that children don't know their sounds when they're quite young, and it's not because they've got some sort of reading problem, it's because they can't hear the distinct sounds. Or it could have been that when they were younger they had a hearing problem and nobody even realised. So hearing tests are pretty important things to look into. Sometimes it's just that the child has had a lack of exposure to books, and so their parents haven't read with them, or when they were young the parents didn't really take the time and energy to involve them much in what reading's all about, and they haven't seen their parents do much reading, so to them it's not really normal. So you can't go declaring something's dyslexia when it's just a lack of exposure. Sometimes the child has just had a run of really bad teaching. You know, they've been taught badly for a couple of years by teachers who are either inexperienced or kept getting sick all the time, or you hear a lot of a child who basically just went from one teacher to the next and they've had 4 teachers in a year and there's been no continuity. The teacher didn't really know the child that well to give them the extra help. Sometimes that's all it is, or sometimes it's that the child is in a class that's just crazy and that maybe the whole school's crazy, you know. Sometimes the behaviour management of that classroom has been just appalling, and as a result the child hasn't really been able to learn. And by the way, that's not always the teacher's fault, obviously. Sometimes the child just has a working memory issue, and the short of it is that we can only keep track of a certain number of things at a time in our head. That's why it took me 7 years to memorise my wife's phone number. There were just too many things to remember. That's why I can go to the shops and get 3 or 4 items, no worries at all, but if I need to get 15 items, I better take a list. It's because our working memory has a limit on its ability to retain multiple bits of information at once. And for a child who's reading, they need to be able to keep track of all these different skills all at the same time. They need to keep lots of the context of the story in their head at the same time. And for a child who's got a limited working memory, that can impact their reading. It often shows up through poor comprehension, and sometimes people think, oh, that child's got dyslexia, when really it's just a working memory issue. That's more of a psychologist's job to diagnose, but it can be the reason. In fact, there are plenty of other things it could be, so don't just jump to the conclusion that a child has phonological dyslexia, and don't just jump to the conclusion that they've got Irlen syndrome or scotopic sensitivity, whatever you want to call visual stress. And remember, teachers, you are not on your own. You are not isolated little beings, okay? That's not how it works. When you're stuck, go and ask another teacher. I know in my first couple of years of teaching, because I'm aware a couple of you who are watching this, or maybe even a lot of you, you know, you're new to teaching. All this is new to you, okay? Don't get too caught up on it. This is just one little part of your job as a teacher. But when I first started teaching, I had some other teachers around me who taught me stuff like this. Not to the level that you now are going to learn about, but enough that I had people to support me. And make sure that if you're new to teaching, that you've got those people around you helping you to work out what's going on with the kids in your class.